I stood in front of the Marshall estate, my fingers trembling as I traced the intricate ironwork of the gates. This was supposed to be where my perfect day would unfold, where I'd finally become Mrs. Cole Harrison. Instead, I was about to lose it all to the woman who had already taken so much from me. My name is Catherine, and this is the story of how I lost my wedding venue, but found myself in the process. Isn't it beautiful? I whispered to Cole as we walked the grounds during our venue tour. The century-old mansion stood proudly against the autumn sky, its marble columns and sweeping staircases exactly as I remembered from my childhood visits with my grandmother. "It's nice," Cole replied, distracted by his phone. "But are you sure about the cost?" My sister Louise mentioned Dash. Louise? I felt my stomach clench. What does Louise have to do with our wedding venue? Before Cole could answer, his phone buzzed. "Hold on, it's Mom." He stepped away, leaving me alone with Agnes, the estate's event coordinator. "Your grandmother used to bring you here for the garden parties, didn't she?" Agnes smiled warmly. "I remember you running around these gardens in your little sundress." I nodded, fighting back tears. "This place means everything to me. It's where Grandma taught me about love and family traditions." The next day, everything fell apart. "You can't seriously be considering the Marshall estate," Louise announced during Sunday dinner at Cole's parents' house. She waved her newly ringed finger in my face. Carlos had proposed just last week. "That's where I'm having my wedding." I nearly choked on my wine. "What?" But Cole and I already dash. "Oh, sweetie," my future mother-in-law Patricia interrupted. "Louise has had her heart set on that venue since she was a little girl. Surely you understand." I turned to Cole, expecting support. Instead, he avoided my eyes, suddenly fascinated by his mashed potatoes. "But we've already started the paperwork," I protested. "We picked a date and everything." "Catherine," Louise leaned forward, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against the table. "You know how much this means to me. I'm like a daughter to the Marshalls. I've done charity work with them for years. It just makes sense that I should have my wedding there." "You've known them for 2 years," I muttered. "What was that?" Patricia's voice carried a warning tone. "Nothing." I forced a smile. I need some air." I escaped to the back porch, where Cole finally found me 20 minutes later. "Baby, I know you're upset," he started. "Upset?" "Cole, this is our wedding we're talking about. My grandmother's favorite place. You know what it means to me." He sighed, running his hands through his hair. "Look, you know how Louise gets. And Mom's already talking about helping with the deposits. It would mean a lot to the family if we could just be flexible about this." "Flexible?" I laughed bitterly. Like when I was flexible about Louise taking over our engagement party, or when she insisted on announcing her promotion at our celebration dinner. That's not fair. Louise is just Louise. She likes things a certain way. Inside, I could hear Louise's theatrical laughter, followed by Patricia's doting responses. A familiar scene that had played out countless times before. "Fine," I said quietly. "She can have the venue." Cole's face lit up. "Really? You're the best, babe. I'll go tell them." As he rushed back inside, I pulled out my phone and opened my messages to Nathaniel, my oldest friend. "Remember that crazy idea we talked about?" I typed. "I'm in." His response was immediate. "You sure about this?" I watched through the window as Louise hugged Cole, their mother wiping away happy tears. No one had even noticed I wasn't there. "Absolutely," I replied. "Time to start planning." That night, as I lay in bed scrolling through Louise's endless social media posts about her perfect venue, I felt something shift inside me. Years of being overshadowed, of playing nice, of being flexible, it all crystallized into a single, clear purpose. Let Louise have her precious Marshall estate. Let her plan her dream wedding, obsess over every detail, and bask in the family's adoration. She had no idea what was coming. I smiled in the darkness, already imagining the chaos that would unfold. Because while Louise was busy playing the perfect bride-to-be, I had information she didn't. Information that would turn her dream wedding into a nightmare. For once, I wouldn't be the one bending to accommodate Louise's wishes. This time, karma would do the bending for me. I picked up my phone one last time and texted Agnes. Can we meet tomorrow? There's something I need to ask you. The pieces were falling into place. And for the first time in years, I felt truly, wickedly alive. You're surprisingly calm about all this, Louise remarked as we browsed through flower arrangements at her chosen florist. I honestly expected more resistance. I smiled sweetly, channeling 3 years of amateur theater experience. Why wouldn't I be supportive of my future sister-in-law? The florist presented another elaborate centerpiece, and Louise clapped her hands in delight. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed with a message from Agnes. Coffee at 2? Important update. I need to step out for a bit, I announced. Wedding errands of my own. Louise barely looked up from the roses. Oh! Found a new venue. Working on it, I replied, already heading for the door. The small cafe near the Marshall estate had become my secret headquarters of sorts. Agnes was already waiting, her usually cheerful face drawn with concern. Catherine, I shouldn't be telling you this, she began, glancing around nervously. But given your history with the estate, the Marshalls are selling. I gripped my coffee cup tighter. Selling? To whom? A developer. They're planning to convert it into a boutique hotel. Construction starts in 3 months. My heart raced. 3 months? But that's exactly when Louise's wedding is scheduled, yes. Agnes nodded grimly. The family hasn't announced it publicly yet. They're waiting until all the paperwork is final. I took a slow sip of coffee, processing this information. And Louise has no idea? None of the clients do. We're supposed to start calling everyone next week to cancel all future events. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Agnes, I reached across the table, squeezing her hand. Thank you for telling me. But please, don't say anything to Louise or her family yet. She raised an eyebrow. Catherine, trust me. Some people need to learn lessons the hard way. Leaving Agnes, I drove straight to Nathaniel's apartment. He opened the door before I could knock, taking one look at my face and saying, "Spill." I told him everything while pacing his living room. When I finished, he whistled low. So let me get this straight, he said. Louise stole your venue, but the venue won't even exist by her wedding day, and you're the only one who knows. Karma's a funny thing, isn't it? He leaned forward, eyes serious. And what about your wedding? Still want to go through with our plan? More than ever. I pulled out my phone, showing him the beach resort I'd been researching. Small ceremony, just us and a few close friends. The weekend before Louise's big day. And Cole. I paused. What about him? Catherine. Nathaniel's voice softened. We've been friends since we were kids. I know you love him, but is he worth all this? That's just it. I sank onto his couch. I'm not sure I do love him anymore. Not after watching him consistently choose his sister's happiness over mine. My phone buzzed again. A message from Florence, Cole's younger sister. Can we talk? Alone. Speaking of allies, I showed Nathaniel the message. Want to help me recruit another one? An hour later, I sat across from Florence at a different cafe, watching her stir her tea absently. I saw what happened with the venue, she said quietly. It's not right how they treat you. How they've always treated you. But they're your family. Exactly. Which is why I know better than anyone how Louise operates. She looked up, determination in her eyes. Whatever you're planning, and don't tell me you're not planning something, I want in. I studied her face carefully. It could get messy. Good. Florence's smile was sharp. It's about time something did. That evening, I attended another wedding planning session at Patricia's house, watching Louise hold court from her usual spot on the expensive sofa. The Marshall estate is just perfect, she gushed. I can already picture everything. The ceremony in the garden, cocktails on the terrace, dancing in the ballroom. I caught Florence's eye across the room, and we shared a subtle smile. What about you, Catherine? Patricia asked suddenly. Found a new venue yet? Actually, yes, I replied smoothly. Something small and intimate. It suits us better. Oh, thank goodness, Louise sighed dramatically. I was worried you might be upset about the whole thing. I stood up, gathering my things. Life's too short for upset, Louise. Sometimes things work out exactly as they're meant to. As I left, I sent a quick text to Nathaniel. Book the resort. It's time. His response came immediately. Already done. No turning back now. I looked up at the evening sky, feeling lighter than I had in months. Louise could have her perfect wedding plans. She could have her family's adoration and her elaborate dreams. I had something better, the truth. And in exactly 3 months, everyone else would have it too. And then I thought, what if we released Doves at Sunset? Louise's voice carried across Patricia's dining room. Wouldn't that be magical? I stabbed my fork into the overcooked chicken, imagining the doves flying straight into the construction cranes that would soon occupy the estate's grounds. Absolutely magical, Patricia cooed. Catherine, dear, you're being awfully quiet tonight. I looked up from my plate, plastering on my best supportive smile. Just taking it all in. Everything sounds wonderful, Louise. I know, right? Louise beamed. Carlos says I have a natural talent for this. Speaking of which, she turned to Cole. Has Catherine shown any interest in helping with the planning? I mean, since she's practically given up on her own wedding. The table fell silent. Cole shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Actually, I set down my fork. We're making progress with our plans. They're just more private. Private? Louise scoffed. Is that code for cheap? Louise, Carlos warned, but she waved him off. I'm just saying, if you need help with the budget dash. Not everyone needs a circus to feel special, Florence cut in, her voice sharp. Patricia gasped. Florence. Apologize to your sister. Stepsister, Florence corrected. And I'm not apologizing for telling the truth. I caught Cole watching me, something like uncertainty crossing his face. For a moment, I remembered why I'd fallen for him, those rare glimpses of awareness when he almost stood up to his family. But then Louise started crying, and like a well-rehearsed play, everyone rushed to comfort her. I'm just trying to help, she sobbed. I want everything to be perfect. Why does everyone hate me? Nobody hates you, Princess, Patricia soothed, shooting daggers at Florence and me. My phone buzzed. A message from Agnes. Development plans finalized. Construction starts exactly as scheduled. Excuse me, I stood up. I need some air. Cole followed me onto the patio. Catherine, wait. Don't, I turned to face him. Just don't. She means well, he started, but I cut him off with a laugh. Remember our engagement party? I asked. When Louise announced her promotion during your speech, she was excited dash. Or my birthday dinner last year. When she hijacked the conversation to show everyone her new car. That's just how she is dash. Exactly, Cole. That's how she is. And you. I stepped closer, looking into his eyes. You're the person who lets her be that way. He ran his hands through his hair, his nervous tell. What do you want me to do? She's my sister. And I'm supposed to be your future wife. The sliding door opened, and Patricia stepped out. Cole, honey? Louise needs you. She's quite upset. Of course she was. Cole gave me an apologetic look before heading inside. I waited until the door closed before pulling out my phone. Everything still set for next weekend? I texted Nathaniel. All arranged. You ready? I watched through the window as Cole hugged Louise, the family clustered around them like a protective shield. More than ready. Back inside, Louise had recovered enough to continue her wedding planning monologue. The Marshall estate is just so perfect, she sighed dreamily. Mom, remember when we used to drive past it when I was little? I always said I'd get married there. Florence caught my eye and mouthed, liar. We both knew Louise had never shown interest in the estate until she'd heard about my plans. I just hope they maintain those beautiful gardens, Patricia mused. I heard rumors about the owners wanting to make changes. I took a sip of wine to hide my smile. I'm sure everything will work out exactly as it's meant to. Later that night, as Cole drove us home, he tried again. Baby, I know Louise can be overwhelming. Overwhelming. I stared out the window. Is that what we're calling it? Look, after the wedding dash. After the wedding, what? I turned to him. Things will be different? Louise will suddenly respect boundaries? You'll finally stand up to your family? He gripped the steering wheel tighter. You're being unfair. No, Cole. I'm being clear. For the first time in our relationship, I'm being absolutely clear. We rode the rest of the way in silence. As we pulled into our driveway, my phone lit up with a message from Florence. Just heard Louise talking to Mom. She's planning to announce her pregnancy at your wedding. Whenever that ends up being. I closed my eyes, letting out a long breath. Of course she was. Opening my eyes, I typed back, "Don't worry. She won't get the chance." Cole was already heading inside, probably assuming I'd follow as I always did, ready to make peace and move on. Not this time. I pulled up my conversation with Nathaniel. "Can you move everything up? I don't want to wait another week." His response was immediate. "Say when." I looked at our house, at the life I'd tried to build with a man who would never truly be mine. "Tomorrow," I typed. "Let's end this tomorrow." The morning sun streamed through our bedroom window as I quietly packed my essentials. Cole had already left for work, kissing me goodbye with his usual distracted affection. He had no idea it would be our last kiss. My phone buzzed with a message from Florence. "Mom's hosting a pre-wedding brunch for Louise today. Where are you?" "Not feeling well," I replied. "Send my regrets." 3 more messages arrived in quick succession. "Florence, you're doing it today, aren't you?" "Nathaniel, flight booked. For PM. Agnes, demolition crew just did their final walkthrough. It's really happening." I took a deep breath and called the one person who deserved to know the truth. "Catherine?" Cole's sister picked up immediately. "Are you okay?" "Florence, I need you to listen carefully. I'm leaving." A pause. "Today?" "Yes. And I need you to do something for me." "Anything. Don't tell them where I've gone. Just be there when everything falls apart." "What about Cole?" I zipped up my suitcase. "He made his choice a long time ago. He just doesn't know it yet." The doorbell rang. Nathaniel, right on time. I opened the door to find him leaning against his car, looking both concerned and determined. "Last chance to back out," he said as he helped with my bags. "Not a chance." I handed him an envelope. "Can you mail this on your way to the airport?" He glanced at the address. "The Marshall Estate?" My resignation letter from Louise's wedding party. Seemed only fair to make it official. As we drove away, my phone lit up with messages from Louise. "Where are you?" "Mom's brunch is starting." "Hello?" "Catherine, this is so inconsiderate. Cole is worried about you." I switched off my phone. "You know they'll try to stop you," Nathaniel said as we merged onto the highway. "They can try." I twisted my engagement ring, then slipped it off. But they're about to have bigger problems. At the airport, Florence called one last time. "Louise is furious," she reported. "She's convinced you're trying to steal attention from her special day." I laughed. "Tell her not to worry. Her special day will be memorable enough." "Catherine." Florence's voice softened. "Are you sure about this? Remember when we were kids? How Louise would always take your toys, and your parents would say, 'Just let her have it.'" "Yeah. I'm done letting her have it." The airport buzzed with activity as Nathaniel and I made our way to security. Just before I went through, he grabbed my hand. "What?" I asked. "I need to tell you something." He looked nervous suddenly. "I've been in love with you since we were 16. My heart skipped. "Nathaniel, I know this isn't the right time. And I know you're running away from Cole, not running to me. But..." He squeezed my hand. "I just needed you to know." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again, Cole calling. I declined the call and turned to Nathaniel. "You're wrong," I said softly. "I'm not just running away. I'm finally running towards something real." His smile lit up his entire face. As we boarded the plane, I turned my phone on one last time. Messages flooded in. "Cole, where are you? Everyone's worried. Louise, this is so typical of you, making everything about yourself. Patricia, dear, you're being very childish. Florence, stay strong. I've got your back." And finally, Agnes, construction company, just posted the public notice. It's all over social media. I smiled, imagining the chaos unfolding at Patricia's brunch. How long before someone saw the notice? How long before Louise's perfect world started crumbling? "Ready?" Nathaniel asked as the plane began to taxi. I looked at him. really looked at him. My best friend since childhood, the person who'd always seen me clearly, who'd never asked me to be less so someone else could be more. Actually, I said, there's something I need to tell you too. But before I could continue, my phone lit up with one final message. From Cole. Just saw the news about the Marshall estate. Please tell me you knew about this. I turned off my phone for good and turned to Nathaniel. Yes, I said, answering both Cole's text and Nathaniel's question. I'm ready. The plane took off, carrying us toward the small beach resort where a justice of the peace was waiting. Where a new life was waiting. Behind us, Louise's perfect world was about to implode. And for once, I wouldn't be there to pick up the pieces. Some people might call it revenge. I called it karma. And karma, like a demolition crew, was about to do its work. The ocean breeze ruffled my simple white dress as I stood barefoot in the sand, holding Nathaniel's hands. No elaborate decorations, no doves, no drama, just us, a justice of the peace, and the setting sun painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. My phone lay silent in my beach bag, but Florence had insisted on keeping one line of communication open through her burner phone. As Nathaniel and I exchanged vows, it buzzed with updates from Ground Zero. Do you, Catherine, take Nathaniel? Buzz, Louise just arrived at the Marshall estate for her final venue walkthrough. You should see her face. I do, I said, squeezing Nathaniel's hands. Do you, Nathaniel, take Catherine? Buzz, OMG. She's screaming at the construction foreman. Mom's trying to call the owners. I do, Nathaniel said, his eyes never leaving mine. Buzz, Cole just showed up. He looks shell-shocked. As we sealed our marriage with a kiss, Florence's messages kept coming rapid fire. Louise is having a complete meltdown. Security had to escort them out. Carlos is trying to calm her down, but she's hysterical. Mom's threatening to sue everyone. I picked up the phone and typed, "How's Cole?" Florence replied instantly, "He keeps asking if anyone's heard from you." Should I tell him? No. He'll figure it out soon enough. Nathaniel wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder to read the messages. You okay? I turned in his arms. You know what? For the first time in years, I really am. Mrs. Nathaniel Chin, he grinned. Has a nice ring to it. Better than Mrs. Cole Harrison ever did. My phone buzzed again, this time with a video. Florence had captured Louise's meltdown in all its glory. She was standing in front of the estate's gates, designer dress covered in dust from the construction site, mascara running down her face as she screamed at a bewildered worker. This is my venue. Do you know who I am? This is my special day. Behind her, Patricia was frantically dialing numbers on her phone while Carlos tried to guide Louise back to their car. Cole stood off to the side, staring at his phone, probably still trying to reach me. Should we watch? Nathaniel asked. I shook my head. Let's dance instead. We swayed to the sound of waves crashing against the shore, but Florence's updates kept coming. Louise found out you knew about the demolition plans. She's out for blood. Mom's calling all the luxury venues in a 100-mile radius. Nothing available. Cole finally connected the dots about your disappearance. He's not taking it well. I switched off the phone and tossed it back in my bag. Enough karma watching for one day. Want to tell me what you're thinking? Nathaniel asked softly. I'm thinking. I looked up at him, at the kindness in his eyes that had always been there. I'm thinking I should have done this years ago. Later that night, in our beachfront suite, I finally turned my phone back on. The messages flooded in. Louise, you knew. You planned this. I'll never forgive you. Patricia, how could you be so selfish? After everything we've done for you. Carlos, this is low, Catherine. Really low. Cole, please call me. We need to talk. And then, one final message from Florence, sent just minutes ago. Louise just announced she's postponing her wedding indefinitely. Says she can't possibly plan another perfect day and time. But here's the real tea, Carlos doesn't look happy about it. At all. I showed the messages to Nathaniel, who was lounging on our balcony with 2 glasses of champagne. Karma's not just a demolition crew, he mused, handing me a glass. It's also a relationship wrecking ball. Should I feel bad? I asked. He considered this. Do you? I thought about years of being overshadowed, of Cole's constant capitulation to his sister's demands, of Louise's endless entitlement. No, I said finally. I really don't. My phone buzzed one last time, Cole calling. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. Catherine? Where are you? On my honeymoon. Silence. Then what? I got married today, Cole. To someone who sees me, who chooses me. But our wedding, we were supposed to. No, I cut him off. You were supposed to be my partner. Instead, you were Louise's brother first, your mother's son second, and my fiancé a distant third. So I made a different choice. Catherine, please dash. Goodbye, Cole. Give my best to Louise. I hear she's having venue troubles. I hung up and turned to Nathaniel, who was watching me with a mix of pride and love. Ready for our first sunset as husband and wife? He asked. I took his hand and stepped onto the balcony, leaving my phone and my old life behind. Ready for everything. 3 days into our honeymoon, Florence's messages became impossible to ignore. Louise is going nuclear. She's telling everyone you sabotaged her wedding. Mom's calling all their society friends, trying to salvage Louise's reputation. Cole's drinking. A lot. Carlos moved out last night. I was lounging by the resort pool when my phone started ringing. Louise's number. Nathaniel looked up from his book, raising an eyebrow. Time to face the music? He asked. I took a deep breath and answered. Hello, Louise. You vindictive bitch. Her scream was so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. You planned this. You knew about the demolition, and you let me plan everything anyway. Karma's funny that way. Karma? She laughed hysterically. You call this karma? You destroyed my wedding. My reputation. Carlos won't even talk to me. That sounds awful, I said calmly. Almost as awful as having someone deliberately steal your wedding venue. Silence. Then, that's different. I deserved dash. You deserved what, Louise? To always get your way? To take whatever you want without consequences. I'm telling everyone what you did, she threatened. No one will ever speak to you again. Go ahead. Tell them how you demanded my venue, how your brother chose you over his fiancé, how your mother enabled your entitlement. Tell them everything. Cole is devastated. She tried a different approach. How could you do this to him? The same way he did it to me. One choice at a time. The line went quiet. When Louise spoke again, her voice was different. Smaller. Carlos says I'm just like Mom. That I never think about anyone but myself. Sounds like Carlos is pretty smart. He says he needs time to think about our relationship. I sat up straighter. Are you actually asking for my sympathy right now? I don't understand why everyone's being so mean to me. Goodbye, Louise. I hung up and turned to Nathaniel. Well, that was dash. My phone rang again. Cole. Your turn. Nathaniel squeezed my hand. Catherine? Cole's voice was rough. Please don't hang up. What do you want? To understand. Was any of it real? Us. I closed my eyes. It was real until it wasn't. Until I realized I'd always be competing with Louise for your attention. So you planned this? This whole time? No. The Marshall estate situation was just lucky timing. But once I knew, I made a choice. Just like you did, every time you chose Louise over me. I loved you, he said quietly. No, Cole. You loved the idea of me. The woman who would always understand, always step aside, always let Louise shine. But that's not love. That's convenience. And Nathaniel? How long has that been going on? I looked at my new husband, who was pretending not to listen while reading his book. Nathaniel saw me when no one else did. Including you. Florence knew, didn't she? About everything. She knew what it was like to live in Louise's shadow. The difference is, she's stuck with it. I had a choice. Cole's voice cracked. I would have chosen you. After the wedding dash. After the wedding, nothing would have changed. We both know that. My phone buzzed with another message from Florence. Carlos just announced he's taking a job in Seattle. Alone. Look at that, I told Cole. Seems like Carlos made a choice too. This is going to destroy Louise. No, it's going to teach her that actions have consequences. Maybe she'll learn from it. Maybe she won't. But it's not my problem anymore. And us, he asked. What are we supposed to do now? You? You're going to hang up this phone, go comfort your sister, and continue being exactly who you've always been. Me? I'm going to enjoy my honeymoon with my husband. Husband, he repeated hollowly. You really married him? Goodbye, Cole. I ended the call and turned to Nathaniel. Well, that's done. He set down his book. How do you feel? Like I just put down a weight I didn't even know I was carrying. My phone buzzed one more time. A message from Agnes. Demolition starts tomorrow. Thought you'd want to know. I showed Nathaniel the message. Want to order champagne? To celebrate the demolition or the confrontations? Both. And to new beginnings. He pulled me close, kissing me softly. To new beginnings. As we clinked glasses, I couldn't help but smile at the thought of the Marshall estate's imminent transformation. Sometimes the most beautiful things rise from the rubble of what we thought we wanted. And sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's finally choosing yourself. 1 week after our return from the honeymoon, Florence sent me the video I'd been waiting for. The Marshall estate's first demolition day, captured in all its glory, including Louise's final meltdown. You have to watch this, I told Nathaniel, curling up next to him on our apartment couch. The video started with Louise's white Mercedes screeching to a halt outside the estate's gates. She jumped out, still in her yoga outfit, makeup streaked with tears. Stop. You can't do this, she screamed at the demolition crew. This is MY Venue. The workers ignored her, continuing their preparations as Patricia's car pulled up behind Louise's. This is gold, Nathaniel whispered, pulling me closer. Florence's steady camera work captured every moment. Louise trying to climb the construction fence, Patricia attempting to reason with the foreman, and finally, Carlos arriving to witness the chaos. Louise, he called out, this has to stop. Carlos. She spun around. Tell them they can't destroy our wedding venue. There is no wedding venue, he said quietly. And there might not be a wedding either. The camera zoomed in on Louise's face as the reality of his words hit her. What are you saying? I'm saying I can't do this anymore. The drama, the entitlement, the constant need to be the center of attention. But I love you. No, Carlos shook his head. You love the idea of a perfect wedding. A perfect life. But none of this is perfect, Louise. It's not even real. Behind them, the first wrecking ball swung into the estate's west wing. Louise's scream of anguish was drowned out by the sound of crumbling marble. The video ended with Louise collapsing into Patricia's arms while Carlos walked away, not looking back. Wow, Nathaniel said. Just wow. My phone buzzed. A text from Ruby, my estranged cousin who'd cut ties with the family years ago after her own run-in with Louise's toxic behavior. Saw the news about Louise's wedding disaster. Finally, someone stood up to her. Dinner soon? You should go, Nathaniel encouraged. Ruby was always the smart one, getting out early. Before I could respond, Florence called. Are you watching the fallout? She asked without preamble. Just finished the demolition video. How's everyone holding up? Mom's in damage control mode. She's telling everyone the venue change is a blessing in disguise because now Louise can have an even grander wedding. And Louise hasn't left her room in 3 days. Carlos's stuff is gone, his ring is on the kitchen counter, and he's not returning anyone's calls. What about Cole? Florence paused. He's different. Quiet. I think he's finally seeing our family clearly for the first time. Better late than never, I said, but without bitterness. Catherine? Florence's voice softened. Thank you. For what? For showing me it's possible to break free. I just accepted a job offer in Chicago. I sat up straighter. Florence. That's amazing. Mom's furious, of course. Says I'm abandoning the family when Louise needs us most. But I'm done living in her shadow. Proud of you, Flo. After we hung up, I checked social media. Louise's perfect Instagram facade was crumbling. Her last post, a bitter rant about loyalty and betrayal, had been deleted after Carlos commented, the only betrayal was believing you'd ever change. Want to hear something weird? I asked Nathaniel. Always. I don't feel guilty. Not even a little bit. He pulled me closer. Why should you? You didn't cause this. You just stopped preventing the natural consequences of their actions. My phone lit up with another message, from Agnes this time. She'd attached a photo of the demolition site with the caption, "Karma has entered the chat." I showed Nathaniel, and we both laughed. You know, he said, we never did have a proper wedding reception. What did you have in mind? Well, Ruby's back in touch. Florence is breaking free. Maybe it's time for a celebration of new beginnings. For everyone who's ever needed to escape Louise's orbit. I considered this. A party for the survivors? Exactly. We could call it. The liberation celebration, I finished, already warming to the idea. I picked up my phone and started a group text with Ruby and Florence. Party at our place next Saturday. Theme, freedom. Dress code, whatever the hell you want. RSVP if you're ready to start living your best Louise-free life. Their responses were immediate. Ruby, count me in. Florence, already picking out my outfit. Nathaniel read the messages over my shoulder. Think Louise will hear about it? Oh, definitely. But for once, I don't care what Louise thinks. He kissed my temple. Now that's what I call character development. Outside our window, the sun was setting on another day in our new life. Somewhere across town, Louise was probably still crying in her room, mourning the loss of her perfect wedding, her perfect fiancé, her perfect control. But here, in our imperfect but honest life, everything was exactly as it should be. The liberation celebration was in full swing when Florence arrived with unexpected news. Cole's here, she announced, finding me by the punch bowl. He's outside in the parking lot. Says he needs to talk to you. Nathaniel squeezed my hand. Want me to handle it? No, I smiled, kissing his cheek. I've got this. Cole stood by his car, looking smaller somehow. The golden boy shine had worn off, replaced by something more human, more real. Quite a party, he said as I approached. I can hear the music from here. Why are you here, Cole? He pulled an envelope from his jacket. Found this while packing up my place. Thought you should have it. Inside was a photo from our first date, both of us laughing at some forgotten joke, young and hopeful. I've been doing a lot of thinking, he continued. About choices. About who I became when I was trying to keep everyone else happy. And I'm moving to Seattle. That surprised me. Seattle? Carlos got me a job at his new firm. Said maybe some distance from the family would do me good. What does Louise think about that? He laughed humorlessly. Louise isn't speaking to me. Says I betrayed her by taking Carlos's side. Did you? Take his side. I told her he was right about her. About all of us. He looked up at the party lights streaming from my window. Sounds like fun in there. It is. We're celebrating. What exactly? Freedom. Truth. The courage to choose ourselves. He nodded slowly. I get that now. Too late, but I get it. From inside, I heard Ruby's voice call out, Catherine. You're missing the toast. I should go, I said. Catherine? Cole's voice stopped me. I'm sorry. Not just for the wedding venue, but for everything. For every time I made you feel second best. I know. Are you happy? With Nathaniel. I thought about morning coffee conversations that never got interrupted by Louise's drama. About decisions made together, without family interference. About being seen, truly seen, by someone who loved me for exactly who I was. Yes, I said simply. I am. Good. You deserve that. As I turned to leave, he called out one last time. Hey, Catherine. Thank you. For what? For showing me what courage looks like. Back inside, the party was reaching its peak. Florence was showing everyone her plane ticket to Chicago. Ruby was teaching Nathaniel our old family dance moves. Friends and relatives who'd spent years tiptoeing around Louise's feelings were laughing freely, sharing stories of liberation. Everything okay? Nathaniel asked as I rejoined him. Better than okay, I smiled. Cole's moving to Seattle. Running away? No, I watched Florence twirl in her freedom dance. I think he's finally running toward something real. Just like the rest of us. Ruby clinked her glass for attention. A toast. To Catherine and Nathaniel, who showed us that sometimes the best revenge is living well. And to all of us who finally learned to write our own stories. To writing our own stories, everyone cheered. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Louise. I hope you're happy with yourself. You've ruined everything. I showed it to Nathaniel, who grinned. Want to respond? Actually, I turned off my phone and set it aside. I don't need to. My happiness speaks for itself. He pulled me onto the makeshift dance floor as Ruby started playing our song. Around us, people who'd spent years living in Louise's shadow were stepping into their own light. Florence was glowing with excitement about her new adventure. Ruby was planning to reopen her art gallery, no longer afraid of Louise's criticism. You know what the best part is? I said to Nathaniel as we danced. What's that? We didn't just get revenge. We got freedom. All of us. He spun me around, and I caught a glimpse of our reflection in the window. Not just a couple, but survivors. Warriors. People who'd learned that sometimes the happiest endings come not from getting even, but from getting free. To freedom, I whispered. To freedom, he agreed. And to Karma, who finally showed up to the party. Outside, the stars twinkled over a city where one family's perfect facade had crumbled, making way for something more beautiful, truth. And inside, surrounded by love and laughter and liberation, I finally understood. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's the joy of becoming exactly who you were always meant to be.
The morning sun in Tampa, Florida, shone through the window of my bedroom. I'm Martha Coleman, 62 years old. As usual, I woke up before my 5:30 alarm clock went off. Habits are strange things. Even 5 years after my husband John passed away, I still feel like he's breathing next to me. I got out of bed and stood by the window. Outside, palm trees swayed in the breeze. Looking at this view, I take a deep breath to prepare for the start of the day. Well, let's do our best today, I tell myself as I head to the closet. I choose a white blouse and navy skirt, and neatly put up my hair. Looking at myself in the mirror, I suddenly remember my daughter Sarah. Sarah is 35 now. When I was her age, I had already started to get Coleman Realty on track. Those were desperate times. But Sarah's life is taking a slightly different path. While having breakfast, I look at a photo of Sarah and Emma. Emma turns 8 this year. Seeing her smile warms my heart. I was worried when Sarah became a single mother after her divorce, but Emma's birth brought joy to our family. Taking a sip of coffee, I smile wryly. I remembered Sarah's new husband, Tom. When I first met him, I was honestly concerned about the age difference. But seeing how Emma took to him made me feel a little more at ease. Tom, make sure you're here at 9 o'clock sharp, I mutter to myself. I hired him as an assistant at our company because I wanted to stabilize Sarah's life. By giving him a job when he was unemployed, I wanted to support the new family's start. In the car on the way to the office, I was thinking about Emma's education fund account. I had just opened it at the bank the other day. I wonder if it was the right decision to let Sarah manage it. A bit of worry crosses my mind. But trusting your daughter is a parent's duty. She must be growing as a parent too. Looking at the Tampa cityscape, I renewed my determination. In this city, our family will carve out a new chapter. Through Coleman Realty, I'll help many people find their dream homes while also protecting my own family's happiness. That's my mission now. I arrived at the office and parked my car. Taking a deep breath, I tell myself to give it my all today. For my family, and for the people of this city. The midsummer sun was shining through the office window in Tampa. I'm at my desk, checking a pile of documents. Coleman Realty continues to grow steadily, but with that comes an increase in workload. Suddenly, I noticed there were no messages from Sarah when I looked at my cell phone. She used to call 2 or 3 times a week, but recently that's decreased significantly. She must be busy, I told myself, but somewhere deep inside, anxiety began to grow. Mrs. Coleman, there's a call from Emma's primary school. My secretary Linda's voice brought me back to reality. Yes, I'll take it. As I picked up the receiver, I heard the voice of Emma's teacher, Mrs. Thompson. Mrs. Coleman, Emma has been absent for about a week, but we haven't received any communication from her family. Is there something going on? I was speechless for a moment. I hadn't heard anything from Sarah. I'm sorry. I'll check and call you back. After hanging up, I immediately tried calling Sarah, but couldn't get through. Anxiety spread in my chest. I decided to leave work early and head to Sarah's house. While driving, I was considering various possibilities. An accident, illness, or just negligence. As I entered the suburban residential area where Sarah lives, I see well-manicured lawns and well-maintained gardens. This house, too, I had purchased and was renting to Sarah. As I parked the car, I saw the Worms couple doing yard work next door. "Hello, Martha," Mrs. Worms called out. "Hello. Have you seen Sarah and her family recently?" Mrs. Worms looked at her husband with a troubled expression. "Actually," she continued, choosing her words carefully, "we've been hearing crying and shouting in the middle of the night recently. We've been concerned." Mr. Worms added, "Last night was particularly bad. We thought about calling the police, but..." More anxiety spread in my chest. As I stared at the front door of Sarah's house, I took a deep breath. "Thank you. I'll check it out." As I approached the front door, I tried to calm myself. But my heart was still pounding. What was going on? Was Emma safe? Fear of what I might see and the sense of duty to know were conflicting within me. I took out my key and put my hand on the doorknob. At this moment, I didn't yet realize how much my life was about to change. As I turned the key and opened the door, a strong stench hit my nose. My eyes widened, and I hesitated to step into the entryway, but thinking of Emma, I knew I couldn't hesitate. "Sarah? Emma?" There was no response to my call. As I advanced down the dimly lit hallway, I noticed something rolling at my feet. Bending down to look, I saw it was an old pizza box. As I moved further, I saw empty cans and half-eaten food wrappers scattered about. What in the world? Entering the living room, it looked like a typhoon had passed through. The sofa cushions were torn, the TV screen was cracked. Clothes, magazines, and toys were carelessly thrown on the floor. A family photo frame that had been hanging on the wall had fallen and broken on the floor. The smiling faces in that photo were so far removed from the current situation that I was at a loss for words. I could feel my heart rate increasing and my breathing becoming ragged. Where was Emma in this situation? Desperately trying to regain my composure, I headed towards the kitchen. When I opened the kitchen door, I froze at the sight before me. A skinny girl was ravenously eating leftover food scattered on the floor. Her hair was tangled, her clothes were dirty, she looked like a completely different person. But seeing her profile, I knew immediately it was Emma. Emma. At my voice, Emma slowly raised her face. Tears were welling up in her large eyes. Grandma. Her voice was thin and trembling. I rushed over to hug her, but seeing her shrink away, I stopped my movement. Emma, it's okay. It's Grandma. As I spoke gently, Emma slowly stood up. That's when I noticed a large bruise on her arm. Grandma, it hurts. Emma's voice made my heart feel like it was going to break. Looking closely at her body, I saw bruises not just on her arms, but on her neck and legs as well. Her clothes were torn, and it was clear she hadn't changed in a long time. Emma, who did this to you? Before I could finish my question, I knew the answer. But I didn't want to believe it. With trembling hands, I took out my cell phone and dialed Sarah's number. After several rings, the phone finally connected. Hello? I hear Sarah's voice. In the background, I could hear the sound of waves and lively music. Sarah, what's going on? Emma is. Oh, Mom. I can't talk right now. There was no sense of urgency in Sarah's voice at all. Sarah, listen. Emma is. Hey, I'm in the middle of an amazing Hawaiian vacation. Don't bother me. But, Emma. Geez, you're so annoying. Bye. The sound of the phone disconnecting rang sharply in my ear. With unbelievable feelings, I turned my eyes back to Emma. She was sitting on the floor, hugging her knees and making herself small. Emma, it's okay. You're safe now. I spoke gently to her and slowly approached. Emma trembled a little, but this time she didn't run away when I got close. Grandma. I'm hungry. Those words made my heart feel like it was going to shatter. Although it was difficult to accept the situation in front of me and my head was in confusion, I knew that caring for Emma was the top priority now. I understand, Emma. I'll get you something to eat right away. I gently picked Emma up, determined to take her out of this nightmare of a house. The fresh air outside would surely cheer her up a little. As I got into the car, I was thinking about what to do next. Hospital or police? Either way, I can't leave things as they are. I was prepared to do anything to protect Emma. As I drove through the streets of Tampa, I watched Emma through the rearview mirror. She was curled up small in the back seat, staring out the window expressionlessly. The sight made my chest tighten, but I knew I had to act calmly now. Emma, it's okay. We're going to the hospital to have a doctor check you out. Emma nodded slightly at my words. While I felt a bit relieved at her response, her silence made me anxious. When I parked the car in the Tampa General Hospital parking lot, I slowly picked Emma up. She was surprisingly light, and that fact made my heart ache again. The hospital's automatic doors opened, and the smell of disinfectant hit my nose. After briefly explaining the situation at the reception, we were immediately seen by Dr. Williams from the pediatric department. Entering the examination room, Dr. Williams spoke gently to Emma with a smile. "Hello, Emma. What seems to be the problem today?" Emma remained silent, trying to hide behind me. I took a deep breath and explained the situation in as calm a voice as I could manage. "Doctor, actually." As I detailed what I had seen at home, Emma's bruises, and her condition, Dr. Williams' expression gradually became more serious. "Mrs. Coleman, thank you for the detailed explanation. First, let's do a full examination of Emma." Dr. Williams proceeded with the examination gently but carefully. He checked the bruises all over Emma's body, assessed her nutritional state, and asked several questions. During this time, I quietly watched from the corner of the room. After the examination, Dr. Williams called me out into the hallway. "Mrs. Coleman, Emma's condition is serious. There are clear signs of abuse. Legally, we are obligated to report this to Child Protective Services." At those words, I steeled myself. "I understand. I feel the same way. What should we do?" "A CPS representative will be here soon. In the meantime, we need to ensure Emma's safety." I said without hesitation, "I'll become Emma's temporary guardian. I'll do anything to protect her." Dr. Williams nodded in agreement. "I think that's the best option. CPS and the police will start an investigation, but it's important to place Emma in a safe environment during that time." The next few hours felt like a dream. The CPS representative arrived, and detailed interviews were conducted. Police officers also came and asked for an explanation of the situation. I repeated the same story multiple times, signed documents, and answered questions. During this time, Emma was sleeping in a hospital bed. Receiving an IV drip and wearing clean hospital clothes, she looked a bit more relaxed. As night fell, things finally settled down. The CPS representative approved my temporary custody of Emma and informed me that a detailed investigation would be conducted. "Mrs. Coleman, the next few days may be difficult. But we need your cooperation for Emma's sake." I expressed my firm determination. "I understand. I'll do anything to protect Emma." Outside the window, the night view of Tampa spread out. Somewhere in this city, what are Sarah and Tom thinking? But now, I must only think about Emma, sleeping in front of me. I intend to do everything I can for her safety and happiness. That's my responsibility as a grandmother and as a human being. The journey from Tampa International Airport to Sarah's house felt long to me. A police patrol car was quietly following behind my car. Jennifer Black was also in the car with me, going over the final briefing. "Martha, it's important to stay calm. getting emotional won't solve anything. I nodded deeply at Jennifer's words. However, it wasn't easy to suppress the emotions swirling in my chest. At dusk, we arrived in front of Sarah's house. The police officers quietly took up standby positions. The house was dark, and it seemed no one had returned yet. Their plane should have arrived 30 minutes ago, I muttered. Just then, I saw taxi headlights in the distance. My heart rate increased. The taxi stopped in front of the house, and Sarah and Tom got out. They were talking and smiling, pulling large suitcases. Seeing them, the anger inside me flared up again. As Sarah took out her key and was about to open the door, I got out of the car. Sarah, Tom. At my voice, they turned around in surprise. Behind them, the police officers also appeared. Mom? Why are you here? Sarah's voice trailed off. I could see the color draining from Tom's face. What's going on? Tom's voice was shaking. I took a deep breath and started speaking as calmly as I could. Both of you, there's something you need to explain. Let's go inside first. Under the watchful eye of the police officers, we entered the house. When we turned on the lights in the living room, the messy room was illuminated. Sarah and Tom seemed at a loss for words at the sight. Emma, where is she? Sarah finally spoke. In the hospital. In the state you left her. At my words, Sarah's face turned pale. Jennifer stepped forward and began stating the facts matter-of-factly. Sarah, Tom, you have committed serious crimes. First, child abuse. Emma's body had numerous bruises and was in a state of severe malnutrition. Tom tried to speak, but Jennifer continued. And Tom. You embezzled over $100,000 from Coleman Realty. The funds for this trip came from there too, didn't they? Tom's face turned blue, and he looked like he was about to stagger. No, that's... However, Jennifer mercilessly presented the evidence. We have all the evidence. Bank records, expense reports, and even hotel reservation records. Tom slumped his shoulders and collapsed into a chair. I admit it. I did it. But Sarah, you didn't know about this. Sarah looked at Tom with a surprised face but quickly averted her gaze. Sarah, you're equally guilty, I said quietly but firmly. You neglected Emma and overlooked the abuse. And you also used up her education fund. Sarah, on the verge of breaking down in tears, weakly argued. That's not true. But she couldn't continue. One of the police officers stepped forward and said in a solemn voice. Sarah Coleman, Tom Parker, you are under arrest on suspicion of child abuse. Tom Parker, you are also charged with embezzlement. As the Miranda rights were read and handcuffs were placed on them, I watched with mixed feelings. The decision to have my daughter arrested was one of the most painful in my life. However, I knew this was a necessary step for Emma's safety and happiness. As Sarah and Tom were put into the police vehicle, Sarah looked at me one last time. In her eyes, I saw a mixture of regret, fear, and something she wanted to say. But I couldn't understand her feelings. As I watched the police vehicle drive away, I said to Jennifer, "It's not over, is it?" Jennifer quietly nodded. "No, this is just the beginning of the real battle. But you can overcome it, Martha. For Emma's sake." Looking up at the moon in the night sky, I renewed my determination. The road ahead will certainly not be smooth. But I intend to move forward no matter what to bring back Emma's smile. The judge's voice echoed in the solemn atmosphere of the courtroom. The court officially grants custody of Emma Coleman to Martha Coleman. At that moment, tears welled up in my eyes. After a long legal battle, I could finally officially welcome Emma as a member of my family. Emma, sitting next to me, tightly gripped my hand with her small one. "Grandma, we'll be together forever now, right?" Looking into Emma's clear eyes, I quietly nodded. "That's right, Emma. From now on, Grandma will protect you." A few weeks later, Emma enrolled in the local private academy of Tampa. Although she was anxious at first, surrounded by kind teachers and new friends, she gradually regained her smile. One Saturday, we went to Busch Gardens. Emma excitedly enjoyed one attraction after another and her eyes sparkled as she watched the animals. "Grandma, isn't that giraffe's neck too long?" Emma's innocent question made me smile involuntarily. "Yes, it is. But thanks to that long neck, it can eat leaves from high places." "Wow, that's amazing." Seeing Emma's curious nature, I felt that her wounds were slowly healing. The following month, a Grandparents' Day event was held at the local parkland. We participated, interacting with other grandparents and grandchildren. Emma played happily with children her age, while I shared parenting concerns and joys with other grandparents. "Martha, the bond between you and Emma is truly wonderful," the woman sitting next to me said kindly. "Thank you. We've overcome some special circumstances together." The woman nodded understandingly at those words. At twilight, on our way home, Emma suddenly stopped and looked up at me. "Grandma, thank you. I'm happy." Those words filled my heart with warmth. Meanwhile, Sarah and Tom were found guilty in court and sentenced to prison. While hoping for their rehabilitation, I decided to limit contact with them, prioritizing Emma's safety above all. Time passed, and Emma grew into a fine high school student. One day, she handed me a letter. "Grandma, please read this." The letter was filled with Emma's feelings of gratitude. "I'm truly grateful that you saved me, Grandma. You're my hero." Those words made me cry again. But this time, they were tears of joy. Through a difficult journey, we became a true family. Blood ties are important, but through this experience, I learned that love and trust are even more crucial. Every time I see Emma smile, I renew my determination. If you have the courage to protect those you love, no matter what difficulties arise, a happy future will surely come. Our new chapter of life continues. And I intend to live each day preciously and My name is Emily Thompson. I just turned 30 and live in a quiet suburb of Michigan. Outside my window, I can see maple trees swaying in the wind, a place where you can feel the changing of the seasons. My husband Ryan and I have been together since college and got married right after graduation. He's 32 and works as an engineer at a local auto parts manufacturer. Our house is a 2-story home surrounded by a white picket fence. You could say we're living the American dream. After 5 years of marriage, we decided to have a child. I'll never forget the joy when the pregnancy test showed positive. Ryan and I hugged and jumped around. It was like a scene from a movie. Every day since finding out about the pregnancy has been full of new discoveries. I bought a mountain of pregnancy books from the local Barnes and Noble and spent nights poring over them. I got excited every time I saw baby items at Target, and choosing a stroller at Bye Bye Baby was the highlight of my days. But along with the joy came anxiety. Thoughts like, will I be a good mother, and can I handle the pain of childbirth, would cross my mind. At those times, I'd hold the quilt my mother who lives nearby made for me, take deep breaths, and try to calm myself down. During the pregnancy, I attended prenatal classes at the local community center. Meeting other women in the same situation and exchanging information gradually built my confidence. On weekends, Ryan and I practiced Lamaze breathing techniques together, laughing as we acted out labor scenarios. Then, one day about 2 weeks before my due date, I was suddenly hit with contractions. Ryan! It's time! At my shout, Ryan panicked and started preparing. He grabbed the pre-packed hospital bag, and we jumped in the car. Ryan's car sped through the quiet residential streets illuminated by streetlights. In about 15 minutes, we arrived at Mercy Hospital. The large cross at the hospital entrance loomed in the night sky. A nurse waiting at the emergency entrance immediately brought a wheelchair. "It's okay, Emily. Take deep breaths," the nurse's kind voice guided me as we headed to the maternity ward. As soon as we reached the room, the midwife Sarah came in. Her calm demeanor helped ease my tension a bit. "How far apart are the contractions?" Sarah asked. I answered, "About every 5 minutes." She nodded and attached the monitor to my belly. "Looking good. Now we just wait patiently for the baby." With each wave of contractions, Ryan held my hand. The warmth of his hand gave me courage. Occasionally, he would look worried seeing my face contort in pain. "It's okay, Emily. You can do this." As time passed, the intervals between contractions grew shorter. The clock on the wall moved slowly. As it started to get light outside, Sarah came to check on me again. "Emily, it's almost time. Time to meet your baby." Hearing those words, I felt a new surge of strength. I gripped Ryan's hand even tighter and mustered my last bit of energy. "That's it, just a little more. Push." I could hear Sarah's voice. And then a small cry echoed through the room. "Congratulations, it's a girl," Sarah said with a smile. She placed the baby on my chest. The weight of a small but sturdy life. I couldn't stop my tears. "Hello, Sophia, I whispered. Ryan, too, was looking at our daughter with tears in his eyes. After that, I was moved to a private room. I was exhausted but filled with happiness as I held Sophia. That's when I heard a faint voice from the next bed. Hello, I'm Jessica. Congratulations. I turned to see a young woman smiling. She was also holding a baby. Thank you. I'm Emily. Did you just give birth too? Jessica nodded. Yes, last night. It's a boy. We exchanged smiles and talked about the new life we were about to begin. My conversation with Jessica eased some of the anxiety of being a new mom. However, I felt something odd about the shadow that momentarily crossed her eyes. At that time, I didn't understand what it was. After 3 days in Mercy Hospital, we returned home with our new family member. When we opened the front door, there was a homemade banner in the living room that said, "Welcome home, Sophia." Ryan must have prepared it in between his work. I felt a lump in my throat at his thoughtfulness. Walking around the house with Sophia in my arms, everything felt fresh. Spaces I used to pass through without a thought now made me wonder if they were safe for the baby. Stairs, sharp corners, even small objects, everything seemed like a potential danger. It's okay, Emily. We'll make it a safe environment together. Ryan's words reassured me a little. The days of child-rearing were a mix of joy and hardship. I feel indescribable happiness every time Sophia's tiny fingers grasp mine. But there were also nights of no sleep due to crying and days of worrying about feeding schedules. Every day was a series of trial and error with a parenting book bought from the local Target in hand. Emily, you're an amazing mother, Ryan encourages me, but his work has become busier than ever. With a new project starting, he's been staying late at the office more often. Every time I see his tired face, I feel guilty. It's okay. This is just temporary. It's for Sophia, Ryan says with a smile, but I couldn't help feeling that our time together was diminishing. Still, on weekends, the three of us would go to the farmer's market or enjoy a picnic at the nearby park. These times help heal the fatigue of daily life. One day, I left Sophia with a babysitter and spent time with a friend at a cafe for the first time in a while. Raising a child is tough, but irreplaceable. My friend's words made me nod deeply, and my steps felt lighter as I headed home. However, from that day on, my life would take an unexpected turn. That day started like any other morning. After finishing Sophia's breakfast and hanging out the laundry, the doorbell rang. Coming. I opened the door, but there was no one there. Puzzled, I stepped outside and noticed a large cardboard box at my feet. What's this? The box had small holes in it, and I could hear faint sounds coming from inside. Nervously, I opened the lid to find a small baby lying there. Oh! I couldn't help but cry out. The baby's eyes were closed, and its face was bright red. It was breathing, but its movements seemed weak. In the strong summer sun, the inside of the cardboard box was like a sauna. Coming to my senses, I immediately called 911. Hello, it's an emergency. A baby has been abandoned in front of my house. Please come quickly. Following the operator's instructions, I brought the baby inside. In the air-conditioned living room, I wrapped it in a soft towel. I gave it a small amount of Sophia's milk with a spoon. It's okay, you're safe now. Touching the baby's forehead, I could feel it was feverish. My chest tightened with worry. A few minutes later, I heard the sound of sirens. An ambulance and police arrived simultaneously. The paramedics immediately started treating the baby, while a police officer began questioning me. What time did you find the box? Did you see anyone suspicious? I told them all the information I knew. Then the officer asked an unexpected question. Is this child not yours? What? No, my daughter is over here. I pointed to Sophia's crib. However, the officer's expression remained stern. We'll need to do a DNA test. Until then, there's a possibility we might have to arrest you. Arrest? But I didn't. As I started to panic, the officer coldly stated, "This child shows signs of abuse. Did you give birth to this child and abandon it because you couldn't raise it?" That's not. I didn't. My mind went blank. Why is this happening? I haven't done anything wrong. Thinking of Sophia, tears started to well up. At that moment, Ryan returned from work. Sensing the situation, he immediately rushed to my side. Emily. Are you okay? What happened? Ryan's presence helped calm my heart a little. While he was talking with the officer, I held Sophia with trembling hands. What will happen from here? Will I, an innocent person, be arrested? What will happen to Sophia? And who is the baby in that cardboard box? Unanswerable questions raced through my mind. After being released from police questioning and returning home, I began to worry about Ryan's behavior in the quiet house. His recent actions, late returns home, increased weekend work, everything seemed unnatural. He might be hiding something, that thought wouldn't leave my mind. The next morning, after Ryan left for work, I made a decision. I decided to search his study. I felt guilty, but I told myself I needed to know the truth. I opened the drawers and checked the documents one by one. Then, among a bundle of old receipts, I discovered several unfamiliar cafe receipts. The dates were from when I was in the hospital. Why are there so many receipts from a cafe near the hospital? My heart started racing. I decided to check his phone records too, opening the online usage details. There, I found records of frequent exchanges with an unknown number. Gathering courage, I called the number. A familiar woman's voice answered. Hello, Jessica speaking. At that moment, everything connected. Jessica, who was in the same hospital room. She and Ryan had some kind of special relationship. Why? I couldn't stop my tears. Sadness and anger at being betrayed welled up inside me. That evening, when Ryan came home, I confronted him with the evidence. Explain this. What is it? Ryan's face changed color instantly. Emily, listen. There's a reason for this. A reason? There's no reason for keeping secrets. Ryan dropped his shoulders and started to tell everything. His meeting with Jessica, learning about her situation, and then Jessica didn't have a boyfriend. She was anxious about raising a child alone. So you comforted her? No, Emily. I was just listening to her concerns. But Ryan's words trailed off. I could see tears in his eyes. But what? Jessica, she switched the babies. I gasped at those words. The baby in the cardboard box flashed through my mind. That baby. Yes, it's actually our child. Emily, the one you've been raising is Jessica's child. The room seemed to spin at Ryan's confession. Why did you keep quiet until now? Jessica was threatening you. She said if we told the truth, she would harm our child. Each of his words deeply wounded my heart. The next day, I decided to meet Jessica directly. We arranged to meet at the local Starbucks. She appeared looking haggard. Emily. I'm so sorry. Tears were in Jessica's eyes. Perhaps she too was a victim of this situation. Tell me everything. Jessica confessed everything. Her lonely situation, her relationship with Ryan, and the circumstances of switching the babies. I didn't have confidence in raising a child alone, but when I saw your happy family, I became jealous. Jessica's words filled me with anger and sadness. But at the same time, I felt her pain. We decided to take a DNA test immediately. The few days waiting for the results were like a nightmare. Ryan tried to support me, but I felt a distance growing between us. Then the test results came out. Jessica's confession was true. The baby we had been raising was indeed Jessica's child. And the baby in the cardboard box was our real daughter, Sophia. The moment I learned the results, various emotions washed over me. Joy, sadness, anger, relief. But above all, a strong feeling that I needed to protect both babies. Ryan was dumbfounded. Emily, what should we do? I took a deep breath and answered, they're both our children. We'll protect them. The truth was revealed. But we still didn't know how to move forward. The only thing clear was that we had to overcome this ordeal and create a new form of family. The day after the truth was revealed, we decided to hold a family meeting. Sitting on the sofa in the living room, with a heavy atmosphere hanging in the air, I took a deep breath and began to speak. Ryan, Jessica, and the babies. We need to decide how we're going to move forward from here. Ryan kept his head down, Jessica looked on the verge of tears, and the two babies were sleeping innocently. This scene told the story of our complex situation. Let me speak first, Ryan opened his mouth. Emily, I'm truly sorry. As I was listening to Jessica's concerns, I sympathized with her feelings, but that's no excuse. I betrayed you. I'm really sorry. Ryan's words made my chest tighten. Amidst the mix of anger and sadness, I tried to maintain my composure. Jessica, I understand your feelings too. But switching the babies, you didn't need to go that far. Jessica replied tearfully, I'm really sorry. I panicked, but now, I just want to see my child. Her words resonated with something in my heart. As a mother, I could understand the feeling of wanting to be with your child. However, we also had to consider the legal issues. First, we need to tell the police everything, I said with determination. Switching babies, abandonment, these are crimes. But if we cooperate, there might be some room for leniency. Ryan and Jessica nodded silently. I could see resolve in their expressions. The next day, we headed to the police station. The questioning lasted for hours, but we told the whole truth without hiding anything. The police officers couldn't hide their surprise, but they appreciated our cooperative attitude. The legal procedures from here on will be difficult, the detective in charge said. But your honest attitude will likely be taken into consideration by the court. Those words gave me a glimmer of hope. A few weeks later, the trial began. Jessica was charged with baby switching and abandonment, but considering her mental state and circumstances, she avoided a prison sentence. Instead, she was placed under strict probation and required to undergo psychological counseling. Ryan was investigated as a possible accomplice, but as no direct involvement was found, he got off with a fine. However, this incident had a significant impact on his career. After the trial ended, we discussed rebuilding our family. Gathered around the living room table, drinking coffee, the conversation began in a heavy atmosphere. Emily, what are we going to do? Ryan asked nervously. I closed my eyes and thought deeply. About everything that had happened, the emotional ups and downs, and above all, about the two babies. Ryan, to be honest, it's still difficult for me to forgive you right now, I said quietly. But for the sake of the children, we need to cooperate. Ryan looked sad but nodded in understanding. Jessica, your child is also a member of our family now, I said, turning to Jessica. But I want you to participate in raising them too. I think that's best for these children. Jessica agreed tearfully. Thank you, Emily. I'll do my very best. From that day on, we began to explore a new form of family. I decided to separate from Ryan, but he visits frequently to help take care of the children. Jessica also meets with the children regularly under the supervision of her probation officer. I started a new life as a mother of two babies and as a single mother. At first, I was full of anxiety, but with the support of family and friends, and the help of a local single mother support group, I'm moving forward little by little. One day, while walking in the park pushing a stroller, an elderly woman next to me struck up a conversation. They're both so adorable. Thank you, I smiled. It must be tough. But when I look into your eyes, I sense strength. Those words brought tears to my eyes. It is indeed tough. But when I see these two babies smile, I feel like it's all worth it. After returning home and putting the babies to sleep, I wrote in my diary. Dear Sophia and Olivia, I was happy to spend another day with you both. You are both so precious to me. There will surely be many difficult things in your life ahead. But Mom will always protect you and continue to love you. The beginning of your lives might have been complicated. But I believe that will make you grow into stronger, more compassionate people. Sophia, Olivia, you are my treasures. Always be yourselves. With love, Mom. Closing my diary and looking at the sleeping faces of the babies, I renewed my determination. The road ahead is certainly not smooth. But for these two, and for myself, I will live strongly and kindly. A new morning begins. The sunlight streaming through the window felt like a ray of hope. 5 years have passed since then. Sophia and Olivia are now active 5-year-old girls. Although they look different, seeing them play together like sisters warms my heart. Today is Sunday. As usual, we're enjoying a picnic in the park. I'm sitting on a bench in the shade, watching the two of them play on the playground equipment. Emily. Sorry I'm late. I turn around to see Jessica running up, out of breath. In her hand is a homemade apple pie. Don't worry about it. The kids just got here too. Jessica sits down next to me and takes a deep breath. My counseling session went well today. The therapist acknowledged my progress. That's great, I replied with a genuine smile. Jessica and I, who initially had a complicated relationship, have now become good confidants. Her sincere remorse and love for the children changed our relationship. Hey, Emily, Jessica says, looking a bit nervous. I'm starting a new job next month. Volunteering at a children's care facility. That's wonderful. Your experience will surely be valuable. Tears glistened in her eyes. Thank you. I wanted to turn my past mistakes into something positive. Just then, Sophia and Olivia came running up to us. Mom! Aunt Jessica, they shouted in unison. What is it? Push us on the swings. We looked at each other and laughed. All right, let's go. As I pushed the swings, I looked up at the sky. White clouds were slowly drifting across the blue sky. Indeed, our lives have taken an unexpected path. But it's because we overcame these trials that we have the happiness we do now. Ryan and I divorced, but he still meets with the children regularly. He's reflecting on his actions in his own way and trying to be a good father. Me? As a single mother, balancing work and childcare is challenging. But thanks to the support of family, friends, and Jessica, I'm managing somehow. Yes, Jessica is now a dear friend. Her presence enriches our family. Hey, everyone, I called out to the children and Jessica. How about we have a sleepover at our house tonight? Yay! The children cheered, and Jessica nodded happily. At this moment, I felt truly happy from the bottom of my heart. Life is a series of unexpected turns. But I believe that with love and forgiveness, we can overcome any difficulty. Martha Marty Sullivan was quietly knitting in her living room, with the soft early summer sunlight of Minnesota streaming in. The serenity she'd cultivated over her 65 years of life was evident in her demeanor. However, this peaceful moment was abruptly shattered by the sudden ringing of the telephone. Picking up the receiver, she heard her son Nathan's voice. "Mom, can you come to the hospital right away? It's about Zoe." His voice was trembling. Marty's heart began to race. Upon arriving at the hospital, Nathan and his wife Vanessa were waiting in the lobby with tense expressions. While baby Zoe, just 1 month old, was undergoing tests, the family waited in anxious silence. When the doctor appeared, he quietly announced, "We've discovered that Zoe has a congenital brain disorder." Those words froze the air in the room. Vanessa was the first to react. "What do you mean? Are you saying our baby isn't normal?" Her voice was a mix of anger and fear. The doctor carefully continued his explanation. "It's a condition that may affect brain development. Early intervention and appropriate treatment will be crucial." Nathan collapsed into a chair. "What are we supposed to do now?" Tears glistened in his eyes. Marty took a deep breath, trying to maintain her composure. "It'll be all right. We'll get through this together." However, her words didn't seem to reach Nathan and Vanessa's hearts. From that day on, the family atmosphere changed drastically. Nathan and Vanessa began to shirk their responsibilities in caring for Zoe, and often started arguments. "Why did this have to happen?" Vanessa cried out one night. "All I wanted was a normal baby." Nathan couldn't hide his irritation either. "We're not prepared to shoulder such a heavy burden." Marty, cradling her granddaughter, was pained by the young couple's words. "Zoe is our treasure. She's precious to us, even with her disability." But her words didn't resonate with the young couple. As they considered treatment options at Mayo Clinic, Nathan and Vanessa's attitudes grew increasingly cold. They refused to participate in treatment discussions and left Zoe's care entirely to Marty. "Nate, Vanessa, let's work together for Zoe's sake," Marty urged repeatedly. But their responses were always curt. One day, when Marty returned from shopping, she found Nathan and Vanessa packing their bags. "What's going on?" she asked, to which Nathan coldly replied, "We need a break." Feeling anxious, Marty said, "I understand. But please come back soon. Zoe needs her parents." After Nathan and Vanessa left, a heavy silence settled over the house. As Marty watched the sleeping Zoe, she couldn't help but feel anxious about the future. However, listening to her granddaughter's soft breathing, she steeled her resolve. "It's all right, Zoe. Grandma's here for you." Outside the window, the summer twilight in Minnesota gently enveloped the city. Marty quietly said a prayer, preparing for the difficult days ahead. The time had come to test the bonds of family. A week passed since Nate and Vanessa had left for their break. Marty had been waiting every day for a call or message from them, but the phone remained silent. One morning, Marty was startled awake by the sudden sound of the doorbell. When she opened the door, there stood Nate and Vanessa. However, their eyes lacked the warmth they once had. "Welcome back," Marty greeted them, but the two entered the house without a word. Vanessa headed straight for Zoe's room and picked up the baby. Marty felt relieved seeing this, but the next moment, she froze at Vanessa's words. "Nate, let's go." "Where are you going?" Marty asked, to which Nate coldly replied, "Just for a drive." Despite feeling uneasy, Marty saw them off. However, even after the car had driven away, a warning bell continued to ring in her heart. Time passed, the day grew late, but they didn't return. Growing anxious, Marty called Nate's cell phone several times, but there was no answer. As twilight fell, she finally heard the sound of a car. Marty sighed with relief as she headed to the door. However, what appeared before her were Nate and Vanessa without Zoe. "Where's Zoe?" Marty's voice trembled. Nate and Vanessa looked at each other, and then Nate spoke. "She's gone." "What do you mean?" The blood drained from Marty's face. Vanessa coldly declared, "We don't want this brat. We left her at the Lake Harriet campground." Marty couldn't believe her ears. "You're joking, right?" But there was no hint of jest in their expressions. "How could you do such a thing?" Marty cried out. Nate and Vanessa, expressionless, began to pack their bags. "Where are you going?" Marty demanded, to which Nate coldly answered, "We're not coming back." "Goodbye, Mom." After they left, Marty was momentarily stunned before coming to her senses. "Zoe." She quickly jumped into her car and headed for Lake Harriet. The day had completely darkened, and the surroundings were enveloped in darkness. Upon reaching the campground, Marty searched desperately with a flashlight in hand. "Zoe! Zoe!" From between the trees, she heard a faint cry. Marty moved towards the sound and finally found Zoe wrapped in a blanket at the base of a large tree. "Oh, thank goodness." Marty picked up Zoe with tears streaming down her face. However, her relief was short-lived as she noticed how cold Zoe's body was. "Hang in there, Zoe. Grandma's here for you." Marty quickly put Zoe in the car and headed for the hospital. On the way, she called the police to report Nate and Vanessa's actions. At the hospital, while the doctors treated Zoe, Marty continued to pray in the waiting room. After what seemed like an eternity, the doctor appeared. "Mrs. Sullivan, Zoe's life is out of danger. It's a good thing you found her so quickly." At those words, Marty nearly collapsed on the spot. The next day, she received a call from the police informing her that Nate and Vanessa had been detained at the airport. While harboring complex feelings, Marty decided to focus solely on Zoe for now. Holding Zoe in the hospital room, Marty made a vow. "I'll never let anyone hurt you again. Grandma will always protect you." Outside the window, the light of a new day was beginning to shine. The road ahead would be steep. However, Marty was determined to move forward, one step at a time, together with Zoe. Several weeks had passed since the terrifying incident at Lake Harriet. Marty sat across from the hospital's social worker, taking a deep breath. "Mrs. Sullivan, are you ready to become Zoe's guardian?" Marty answered without hesitation. "Yes, I'll raise her." Nate and Vanessa had been charged with child abandonment and were awaiting trial. While anger and sadness swirled in Marty's heart, she knew she had to focus on Zoe, who was right in front of her. The guardianship process was more complex than she had anticipated. Mountains of paperwork, interviews, home visits. She could feel the concerned gazes of those around her, wondering if a 65-year-old woman could raise an infant. But Marty didn't give up. "I have the strength to make Zoe happy. I will certainly raise her well." Her words, filled with determination, made even the judge nod deeply. On the day she was officially recognized as Zoe's guardian, Marty hugged her granddaughter at the hospital. "Now, let's go home." Back home, a new reality awaited. A crib, diapers, formula. Marty hadn't imagined she'd be taking care of a baby again at 65. But every time she saw Zoe's smile, all her fatigue vanished. Visits to Children's Minnesota Hospital became routine. Neurology, physical therapy, speech therapy. Managing appointments alone was challenging, but Marty desperately kept up. "Mrs. Sullivan, you're doing very well," Dr. Johnson, the attending physician, said. "We're seeing good signs in Zoe's development." At those words, Marty felt tears welling up. "Thank you. I'll keep doing my best." However, not everything was smooth sailing. Preparing midnight bottles and dealing with seizures pushed her to her physical and mental limits at times. One day, Sarah, a 58-year-old former nurse living nearby, came to visit. "Marty, you look like you're having a tough time. Is there anything I can help with?" At first hesitant, Marty gradually began to accept help. Sarah would occasionally assist with Zoe's care, giving Marty some time to rest. The church community also became a big support. After Sunday Mass, many people would approach her. "Do you need anything? Is there anything we can do?" Marty slowly began to realize that she didn't have to shoulder everything alone. One day, Zoe called out, "Mama," for the first time. Marty's heart swelled with joy. "That's right, I'm Grandma," she replied, while feeling a twinge of loneliness. This was a moment that Nate and Vanessa should have experienced. However, such thoughts didn't linger long. Zoe's smile and daily growth gave new meaning to Marty's life. Sometimes, she was aware of the eyes around her. When she was with young mothers in the park, she felt out of place. But Marty held her head high. "We may be a different kind of family, but we're a family filled with love." A year passed, and Zoe's second birthday was approaching. Marty planned a small party. Sarah and friends from church gathered, and the house was filled with a warm atmosphere. As she watched Zoe blow out the candles on her cake, Marty thought, "Our journey has only just begun. But we can overcome anything together." That night, as she put Zoe to bed, Marty quietly vowed, "I'll make you happy, Zoe. Grandma will love you enough for both Mama and Papa." Outside the window, the Minnesota stars were shining. The story of this new kind of family was just beginning. But the bond between Marty and Zoe had the strength to overcome any difficulty. It was the true image of a family, transcending blood ties. 8 years had passed, and Zoe was now 10 years old. Marty had turned 75, but she felt fulfilled in her life with her granddaughter. Zoe's disability still affected her daily life, but the two were moving forward little by little. One day, after a regular checkup at Children's Minnesota Hospital, Dr. Johnson made a new suggestion. "Zoe, would you like to try art therapy? We can expect it to be effective as part of your rehabilitation." Zoe hesitated a bit, but Marty gently encouraged her. "Why don't you give it a try? Starting something new is always good." At the first session, Zoe nervously gripped the paintbrush. However, as she layered colors, Marty could see her expression gradually softening. When the session ended, Zoe shyly showed her painting to Marty. It was a colorful flower field. "Grandma, look!" Marty gasped. She felt that Zoe's painting contained something she couldn't express in words. "It's wonderful, Zoe." From then on, Zoe looked forward to art therapy every week. Her paintings gradually became more complex, and her use of color became richer. One day, Sarah, the art therapist, approached Marty. "Mrs. Sullivan, Zoe's talent is special. Her paintings show deep emotions and a unique perspective." At those words, Marty felt surprised and delighted. Zoe's paintings might be becoming a means of expressing her inner world. As Zoe's 11th birthday approached, she developed a high fever and had to be hospitalized. Watching Zoe lying quietly in the hospital room, Marty's heart ached. "Zoe, it's okay. You'll get better soon." When Marty spoke, Zoe smiled weakly. "Grandma, can you bring my painting supplies?" Marty rushed home and brought Zoe's art materials. For the next few days, Zoe continued to paint from her hospital bed. Her paintings had a depth that hadn't been there before. On the day of discharge, the hospital staff were surprised when they saw Zoe's paintings. "These are wonderful," said Jenny, a nurse. "Would you like to exhibit them at the Ronald McDonald House?" Ronald McDonald House is a facility for sick children and their families. Zoe's eyes lit up. "Really? Can I?" "Of course," Marty answered. "Let's show everyone Zoe's paintings." Preparing for the exhibition was a new challenge for Zoe. She seriously considered which paintings to choose and how to arrange them. On the day of the event, many people visited the small exhibition space. A 10-year-old child painted such amazing works. "This use of color is professional level." Zoe smiled shyly but happily at the words of the visitors. Among those who came to see the exhibition was Lisa Stevens, a curator from the Walker Art Center. She spent a long time standing in front of Zoe's paintings. "Mrs. Sullivan," Lisa approached Marty. "Zoe's talent is wonderful. Would you like to exhibit at our Young Artists show?" At those words, Marty and Zoe were speechless with surprise. But Zoe's eyes were shining with expectation. "I want to do it," she answered immediately. That night, as they had dinner as a family, Marty was thinking about Zoe's future. Even with her disability, she could express herself through art. It felt like a new door of possibility had opened for Zoe. "Zoe, Do you really want to pursue the path of art? Marty asked. Zoe answered in a firm tone. Yes, I can express my feelings through painting. Plus, I can make people smile. Marty felt a warmth in her chest at her granddaughter's growth. Despite overcoming difficulties, Zoe was trying to find her own path. All right, Grandma will support you with all her might. When Marty said this, Zoe beamed with a full smile. Outside the window, the sunset was dyeing the city red. Looking at this beautiful scene, Marty thought, Zoe's life would surely shine as beautifully as this sunset. There would still be difficulties ahead. But with art as a new light, it would brightly illuminate their lives. Believing this, Marty and Zoe began preparing to take a new step forward. The day of Zoe's first solo exhibition at the Northrop King building had arrived. Marty was now 75 years old, but her heart swelled with pride at her granddaughter's success. Upon arriving at the venue, many people had already gathered. Art dealers and critics were casting eager glances at Zoe's works. As the opening ceremony began and Zoe stepped onto the stage to give her greeting, a commotion broke out at the entrance of the venue. Marty's eyes widened. Standing there were Nate and Vanessa, whom she hadn't seen in 10 years. As a silence that seemed to stop time enveloped the venue, Nate and Vanessa walked towards Zoe. Zoe. Nate called out. We've come back. Marty immediately stood in front of Zoe. Why have you come? Vanessa began to speak tearfully. We made a terrible mistake. But we truly regret it. We want to come back to the family. However, Zoe calmly replied, I knew you two would come. As the venue was wrapped in surprise, Zoe continued. Please look closely at my paintings. Especially the one in the center. Nate and Vanessa turned their eyes to the indicated painting. At first glance, it seemed to be a beautiful landscape, but upon closer inspection, unsettling elements were hidden within. Zoe began to explain matter-of-factly. This painting depicts the day you abandoned me. But that's not all. She pointed to a part of the painting. Do you see the numbers hidden here? This is the auction price of my latest work. Nate and Vanessa's faces tensed. Zoe continued, you suddenly appeared after my talent started to be recognized. That's not a coincidence, is it? Vanessa said in a trembling voice, that's not true, we really. But Zoe interrupted her. If you really wanted to come back to the family, why didn't you contact me before I became famous? Why didn't you help when Grandma and I were struggling? Nate and Vanessa were at a loss for words, standing stock still. Zoe calmly continued, my talent isn't for money. It's to overcome past pain and create a new future. And I already have a loving family. She smiled at Marty. If you truly want to make amends, you should start by filling in the 10-year gap. But if you came for the money, please leave now. After a moment of silence, the venue erupted in applause. Many people were moved by Zoe's courage and wisdom. Unable to withstand the cold stares from those around them, Nate and Vanessa hurriedly left the venue. Marty hugged Zoe, holding back tears. You've really grown strong. Zoe replied, "It's thanks to you, Grandma. We're the strongest family." That night, under the starry sky visible from the windows of the Northrop King building, Marty and Zoe felt the beginning of a new chapter. Zoe had used her talent to face her past and overcome it. The two were prepared to overcome any difficulties with love and talent as their weapons. And they quietly felt that the events of this day would be a major turning point in their lives. After Nate and Vanessa left the venue, Zoe let out a deep breath. As the people around her watched over her, she began to speak quietly. "Those two are my parents. But they're also the people who abandoned me." As the venue held its breath, Zoe continued. "Today, I understood their true intentions. But strangely, I can't bring myself to completely reject them." Marty placed her hand on her granddaughter's shoulder, smiling encouragingly. "My works contain all my suffering and joy. Someday, I hope they can understand too." There was a hint of hope in Zoe's voice. She looked around the venue and said firmly, "Family bonds aren't easily repaired. But through art, I'll continue to express my feelings. That's the path I've chosen." Those words enveloped the entire venue in applause of admiration. After the exhibition, Marty and Zoe quietly headed home. In the car, Zoe suddenly said, "Grandma, was it okay that I didn't completely reject them?" Marty gently replied, "I'm proud of your decision. It's not an easy path, but this is your strength." A year passed since the exhibition. Zoe's talent blossomed further, and her works began to attract national attention. One day, as Marty was checking the mail, an unfamiliar envelope caught her eye. She gasped when she saw the sender. It was from Nate and Vanessa. Opening the letter together with Zoe, they found long words of apology and updates on the two's recent situation. It was clear that they had deeply understood their mistakes through Zoe's works and were sincerely reflecting. The letter stated that they had started volunteering at a local childcare center and were facing their problems by receiving counseling. After reading the letter, Zoe quietly said, "Grandma, I think I want to meet them." Later, the reunion with Nate and Vanessa was filled with tension and emotion. While it would still take time for complete reconciliation, they were able to take a small step forward. While carefully building a relationship with her parents, Zoe continued to cherish her strong bond with Marty. Her works, which wove in the complex story of her family, touched the hearts of many people. Marty, proud of her granddaughter's growth and strength, gradually accepted this new form of family. The theme of Zoe's next solo exhibition was rebirth. Her image of overcoming past pain and weaving new bonds gave hope to many people. Though the shape of the family had changed, Zoe embodied through her life and art that, with love and understanding, any wound can be healed. The gentle morning sunlight streams through the window, softly illuminating my face. As usual, I wake up before the alarm clock rings. Even at 62, the habit from my 30 years as a high school teacher is hard to shake off. "Good morning, Eleanor," my husband George greets me with a sleepy voice from beside me. At 65, he still maintains his early rising habit from his days as a police officer, even after retirement. Good morning, George. Another beautiful day, I smile in response as I get up from bed. I open the curtains and take in the morning view of Cedarville, Ohio. It's a small college town of about 4,000 people, but it exudes a peaceful atmosphere with its lush greenery. As I prepare breakfast, I mentally organize today's schedule. Our son Mike and daughter-in-law Sarah are heading off to work, so we'll be looking after our 2-year-old grandson, Jacob. Mike is busy as a researcher at a major pharmaceutical company, while Sarah works at a local real estate agency. Helping the young couple balance work and childcare is one of the joys of being grandparents. George, don't forget we're watching Jacob today, I remind him. Oh, of course. I'm looking forward to it. George looks up from his newspaper with a smile. Taking care of our grandson has become one of our greatest pleasures in life. After breakfast, I take a walk around the neighborhood. I exchange greetings with neighbors along the way. Good morning, Eleanor. Early as always, I see, Mrs. Johnson calls out while tending to her garden. Good morning, Linda. Your garden looks lovely, I reply. Thank you. I'm planning to sell some of these flowers at the church bazaar, she says. It's moments like these that remind me of the strong sense of community here. We've lived in Cedarville for over 40 years, and this warm community has become our cherished home. When I return home, I receive a call from Sarah. Good morning, Mom. We'll be dropping off Jacob soon, she says. Of course, Sarah. Don't worry about a thing, I assure her. As I hang up, I feel a slight twinge of mixed emotions. My relationship with Sarah isn't bad, but sometimes I sense differences in our values. We occasionally disagree on small things like child-rearing methods or household role division. However, for the sake of family harmony, I always try my best to be understanding. Just before noon, Mike brings Jacob over. Mom, thanks again for today. We'll pick him up in the evening, he says. All right, Mike. Take care, I reply. As I embrace Jacob, I feel warmth spread through my heart at my young grandson's innocent smile. Grandma. Jacob laughs gleefully, throwing his arms around my neck. In the afternoon, while playing with Jacob in the garden, some neighborhood children join us. The sound of children's laughter fills the air, creating a peaceful atmosphere. Eleanor, how about some tea? George calls from the porch. Thank you, George, I reply gratefully. We sit on the porch, watching our grandson and the neighborhood children play, enjoying a tranquil moment together. Our retirement life is filled with these small moments of happiness. In the evening, when Mike comes to pick up Jacob, he looks a bit tired. What's wrong, Mike? Is something bothering you? I ask, concerned. Oh, it's nothing, Mom. Just busy at work. He trails off. I'm a bit worried about my son's demeanor, but I decide not to press further. The young couple must have their own concerns. As I lie in bed that night, I reflect on the day. Even in our peaceful daily life, I sense small worries and changes affecting each family member. I wonder what tomorrow will bring as I quietly close my eyes. After finishing my morning routine, I was waiting in the living room for Jacob to arrive. Mike's tired appearance yesterday was still on my mind, and I thought I'd try to have a more detailed conversation with him today. Outside the window, the soft early summer sunlight gently illuminated the streets of Cedarville. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Looking at the clock, I realized it was too early for Mike to arrive. I wonder who that could be, I thought as I headed towards the door. When I opened the door, 2 police officers were standing there. One was a man in his 50s, and the other was a younger woman in her 30s. They were both in uniform, but something felt off. "Good morning, Mrs. Thompson. We're here to discuss a matter with you," the older officer said. "Yes, what can I help you with?" I asked, feeling a bit tense. "Can we talk inside?" the young female officer asked. There was a hint of urgency in her voice that I found unsettling. I led them into the living room. As I gestured for them to sit on the sofa, they settled down with a somewhat uneasy air. "We're here on a rather delicate matter," the older officer began. His expression was grave. "What's happened?" I asked, feeling anxious. "An arrest warrant has been issued for your grandson, Jacob Thompson." The moment I heard those words, my mind went blank. "What? What did you say?" My voice rose involuntarily. Surely there must be some mistake. "Jacob is only 2 years old," I said, desperately trying to make sense of the situation. The older officer cleared his throat and said, "We understand that this is an unusual situation. However, we have our orders." Confusion and questions were swirling in my mind. An arrest warrant for a 2-year-old child. How could that be possible? Even when George was in the police force, I'd never heard of anything like this. What exactly is he being charged with? I asked, trying to maintain my composure. The young female officer answered, "We can't disclose the details, but we have information suggesting involvement in a serious economic crime." Hearing those words, I became even more bewildered. A 2-year-old child involved in an economic crime. It made absolutely no sense. This must be a mistake. Jacob is truly just a 2-year-old child. He can't even count money by himself, let alone commit an economic crime, I explained desperately. The 2 officers exchanged glances. I sensed something akin to nervousness in their demeanor. "Mrs. Thompson, we understand the unusual nature of this situation. However, we have orders from above." The older officer began, but the younger one interjected. "Actually, there is a way to resolve this situation," she said. I listened intently. "If you pay bail, we won't need to take Jacob into custody," the young officer explained. "Bail? How much?" I asked, trying to maintain my composure despite my agitation. $100,000. I gasped when I heard the amount. $100,000. Such a large sum, I couldn't possibly. "We can arrange for installments. $30,000 now, and the rest can be paid later," the older officer quickly added. The feeling that something was very wrong grew stronger within me. Police procedures couldn't possibly be this simple. And the behavior of these two officers was strange. Could I have some time to think about this? I'd like to consult with my husband, I said, trying to buy some time. The two officers visibly tensed. But this is an urgent matter. I understand. But we're talking about a large sum of money. I need a little time, I said firmly. The officers reluctantly stood up. All right, we'll return in 2 hours. Please make your decision by then. As I saw them off, various questions were swirling in my mind. Was this really an official procedure? Why would there be an arrest warrant for a 2-year-old child? And were these two really police officers? After closing the door, I took a deep breath. I needed to think calmly. First, I should call George. He would know about police procedures. And I needed to contact Mike and Sarah too. As I reached for the phone, I felt a sense of unease along with a premonition that something big was about to happen. I let out a deep sigh as I hung up the phone. My conversation with George had made the abnormality of this situation even clearer. Eleanor, listen carefully. George's voice had maintained its usual calm. First of all, it's almost impossible for an arrest warrant to be issued for a 2-year-old child. Also, the police would never directly demand bail money. This is most likely a scam. Recalling George's words, I started jotting down notes. I listed the suspicious points about the two individuals posing as police officers, the slight oddity in their uniforms, their nervous behavior, their demand for immediate bail payment. As I wrote each point down, it became increasingly clear how many suspicious elements there were. Looking out the window, I saw Mrs. Johnson working in her garden. She might have noticed something. I went out to the garden and called out to her over the fence. Linda, do you have a moment? What is it, Eleanor? Is something worrying you? Mrs. Johnson approached, taking off her soil-covered gloves. I briefly explained the situation. Mrs. Johnson's expression changed to one of surprise and concern. Oh my, what a terrible thing. She frowned. Come to think of it, I did see an unfamiliar car parked earlier. It looked like a police car, but something seemed off about it. My heart raced at this information. What kind of car was it? Mrs. Johnson provided me with details. The make, color, even part of the license plate number. I hurriedly wrote it all down. Thank you, Linda. This is very helpful. Back in the house, I tried calling Mike. But there was no answer. I left several messages on his voicemail, but received no response. Anxiety spread through my chest. Next, I tried calling Sarah, and she answered immediately. What is it, Mom? There was an odd uneasiness in Sarah's voice. Sarah, something serious has happened. It's about Jacob. As I began to explain the situation, Sarah's reaction was strange. Rather than surprise or concern, I sensed something more like panic. I see. But Mom, shouldn't you just do what the police say? I felt uneasy about those words. The normal Sarah would have been much more agitated. Sarah, do you know something about this? No. Nothing. Her voice was trembling. Sorry, Mom. I'm at work right now. I'll call you back later. The call ended. Various questions swirled in my head. Sarah's behavior was clearly unusual. Was she hiding something? Looking at the clock, I realized it was almost time for the fake officers to return. I hurriedly began my preparations. I went over the response methods George had taught me and prepared to gather evidence. I slipped a small voice recorder into my pocket and made sure my phone camera was ready. The doorbell rang. I took a deep breath and headed for the door. In my mind, I organized all the information I had gathered. The suspicious points about the fake officers, Mrs. Johnson's testimony, Sarah's strange reaction. Before opening the door, I steeled my resolve. I had to unravel this mystery and protect my family. For the sake of my grandson Jacob, and for the truth. As I placed my hand on the doorknob, I whispered quietly, "Now, let's reveal the truth." When I opened the door, the two fake officers were standing there as expected. "Mrs. Thompson, have you made your decision?" the older man asked, unable to hide his impatience. Maintaining a facade of calm, I replied, "Yes, I've thought it over. But could you please show me the official warrant?" The two visibly flustered, exchanging glances. "Well, that's..." The younger woman stammered. "And I'd like to see your police badges as well," I said firmly. "We apologize, but we didn't bring them today." "I see. In that case, let me call the station to confirm," I said, reaching for my smartphone. The two panicked. No, that won't be necessary," the older man hurriedly tried to stop me. We'll be leaving now." With that, they hastily departed. I watched their retreating figures with a cold gaze. As I closed the door, I felt my heart racing. This gave me near certainty. But I still didn't have the full picture. That night, I received a call from Mike. "Mom, what's going on? I had a bunch of missed calls from you." I explained the situation. Mike's voice trembled with surprise and anger. "What in the world?" "I'm coming home right away, Mom." After hanging up, I was pondering if I had overlooked anything. That's when I noticed Sarah's smartphone on the living room table. She must have forgotten it in her haste to leave earlier. I hesitated. It's not right to invade someone's privacy. But now, our family's safety was at stake. Taking a deep breath, I picked up the smartphone. When I swiped the screen, it wasn't locked. Looking at the recent call history, I noticed frequent interactions with an unknown number. I pressed one of them, and a voicemail played. "Sarah, proceed as planned. I'll wipe out your debt. This is your chance to outsmart your husband and in-laws." I trembled at the man's voice. Was this the beginning of it all? But why would Sarah do such a thing? I heard the front door open. Mike had returned. "Mom, I'm home." Mike's voice was a mix of exhaustion and worry. After I explained the situation in detail, Mike's expression clouded. "Sarah, what on earth are you thinking?" Just then, the doorbell rang. When we opened it, Mr. Wilson from across the street was standing there. "Eleanor, I'm sorry for coming at this hour. But I think you should see this." What he handed over was footage from a security camera. It showed the fake officers in a secret meeting with Sarah. I thought this looked strange, so I checked it out. Don't you think this is odd? We were speechless. The evidence was clear. At that moment, the front door opened, and Sarah walked in. Her expression froze. "Sarah, can you explain this?" Mike's voice was low, controlled. Sarah collapsed to the floor. "I'm sorry. I'll tell you everything." Her confession began. She revealed her gambling addiction and the massive debt she had accumulated. She spoke of her struggling marriage and her jealousy over Mike's dependence on his parents. Finally, she admitted to being coerced into this scheme by debt collectors who were threatening her. "But I didn't really want to do it. Deceiving my family." Sarah's voice trembled. Mike let out a deep sigh. "Why didn't you talk to me? We could have solved this together." I watched the two of them with mixed emotions. Anger and sadness, but also a bit of relief. At least now, the truth was out in the open. "Well, let's report this to the police," I said quietly. "The real police, this time." With those words, the atmosphere in the room seemed to lighten a bit. A long night was coming to an end. Difficult times lay ahead, no doubt. But now that we knew the truth, we could surely overcome this trial as a family. Looking out the window, I could see the first light of dawn peeking through. It was the start of a new day. And the beginning of a new chapter for our family. As the morning sun began to softly illuminate the room, we heard the sound of police sirens approaching. The real police had arrived. We went out to the front door to greet them. "Thompson family, we apologize for the delay," Detective Johnson, a veteran officer, addressed us. "Please tell us the details of what happened." We took turns explaining the events of the past few days. Sarah's confession, Mr. Wilson's security camera footage, and the actions of the fake police officers. Detective Johnson listened intently with a serious expression. "I see, I understand the situation now," the detective nodded. "Actually, we've been seeing an increase in these types of scams recently. The perpetrators try to exploit family bonds to fraudulently obtain money. In this case, they targeted a 2-year-old child." Hearing those words, we once again realized the gravity of the situation. The unrealistic scenario of an arrest warrant for 2-year-old Jacob was a trap designed to cloud our judgment. "Sarah," the detective gently addressed her. "Your cooperation will be key to solving this case. Can you help us catch the culprits?" Sarah nodded through her tears. "Yes, I'll do anything. I don't want to lie anymore." A few hours later, the fake police officers were arrested. They were part of an organized fraud group that used tactics to extort money by exploiting family vulnerabilities. They had used Jacob's name simply because he was the youngest family member. The sheer absurdity of it had the effect of confusing the victim's judgment. Once the immediate crisis had passed, we took time as a family to face each other. We gathered in the living room, sipping tea and discussing things we hadn't been able to talk about before. "Sarah, why didn't you come to us sooner?" Mike asked quietly. Sarah answered with her head bowed, "I was ashamed. Your parents are so wonderful, and I felt like I was a failure as a wife. So I escaped into gambling." I took Sarah's hand. "You're not a failure as a wife, dear. Everyone has their own struggles. What's important is that we overcome them together." Mike nodded in agreement. "That's right, Sarah. You don't have to bear this burden alone. From now on, let's talk about everything." Sarah's eyes welled up with tears at those words. "I'm so sorry." "Thank you." We spent a long time talking. About our feelings, our future life, and about Jacob. Slowly but surely, I could feel our family bonds being repaired. A few days later, our neighbors gathered to throw us a small party. "Eleanor, you've been through quite an ordeal," Mrs. Johnson said gently. "We made it through thanks to everyone's help," I replied, filled with gratitude. Mr. Wilson approached us too. "I'm glad that footage was useful. If you ever need anything, just let me know." I felt a warmth in my chest, touched by the kindness of our community. In the middle of the party, Jacob came running to me. "Grandma." As I picked him up, I found myself tearing up. We had all come together as a family to protect this child. That night, I stepped out into the garden alone to look at the stars. The events of the past few days flashed through my mind like a slideshow. Fear, anxiety, anger, and finally, the relief and hope that followed. I've never felt the importance of family so strongly before. There's no such thing as a perfect family. But by understanding and supporting each other, we can overcome any difficulty. That's the true strength of family. This ordeal taught me that. From inside the house, I could hear the laughter of Mike, Sarah, and Jacob. I took a deep breath and looked up at the starry sky once more. "Thank you," I whispered softly. I'm not sure who I was thanking, but a definite feeling of gratitude spread through my chest. Tomorrow, a new day begins again. I'm sure it won't all be smooth sailing. But I know we can get through it together. As a family, and as members of this warm community. I quietly returned to the house.